My name is Alex Del Sordo, and I'm with my father, Sandy Del Sordo, here at Finish Line Show Repair.
Hey, plenty of race space!
This is the Rower's Choice Podcast.
I'm Alex Del Sordo, and we are at another Rower's Choice Zoomcast podcast, whatever you want to call it. And I'm with someone who I actually have known his brother for a very long time. I've known of him. I have worked alongside him in many facets of rowing, but we've never actually had a legitimate sit-down conversation until today. And I'm with Marty Crotty, the head of Princeton lightweight rowing, but this guy has a huge background. There's one thing that he brought up that I think is really fantastic, and that is the 1 degree of separation rowing. And everyone knows what I'm talking about. Rowing is the smallest sport in the world. I truly believe it. We're all connected in some way, shape, or form, and we're going to talk about that on today's show. We're going to talk about the 1 degree of separation between Marty, myself, and all the other people in the rowing world. We're going to learn a little bit about his background and his rowing experience, as well as his coaching experience, and a hot topic that we will close with, which is lightweight rowing in America. Where is it headed? What can we do to make it better? What can we do to make it stronger? Is it in? Is it out? You name it. So, Marty, welcome to the show, man. Thank you for being here.
Thanks a lot for having me, Alex. And I was drawn to this, I suppose, through your coaches yelling
Yes.
game show, that I guess you could call it. Hopefully I never have to be on that show, because I don't think I could take it to Mike Wallen and Luke Walton.
They're tough guys, man. I mean, there's something about them. No, they're tough. They're I think what it is like they're so passionate about rowing, and they come from a world of just being loud. They're just loud guys, and they love to talk. So, Marty, I'm going to start every other episode. We're going to start with this. I want to know your background from the time you took your first stroke to today running the men's lightweight program at Princeton University. Walk me through it.
I'm not going to get into the details. You can dig if you want. So the broad stroke is 1993. I was at Canisius High School in Buffalo, and our varsity baseball team was very good. I'd played baseball my whole life, and it just wasn't in the cards. There were a couple of catchers ahead of me. And I went down to the boathouse, and thank God for a guy named Mark Kostrevsky, who is still around at the BSRA now. Mark Kostrevsky took me aside and kind of fast-tracked me. And Mark Kostrevsky and Jack Dorn were my first 2 coaches. 4 months later, I was on the starting line in Oslo, Norway, in the Junior World Championship 8, and here I am now. I guess that's the fast version.
Wait a minute. 4 months into rowing, and you're on the junior national, starting. How do you get there? How did that happen?
In Buffalo, everything is super late. I didn't take my first strokes. I didn't take my first stroke on the erg or in the tanks until late March. We went down to a training camp down in Ithaca, as Canisius still does, for a 3-day kind of weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday training camp. I loved it. I loved being out on the water. I loved just feeling of leverage and moving a boat. And we had a great team and a couple good guys around me. Went through that whole season, had a pretty good junior 4 going. I famously ripped my hip apart the day before Scholastic Nationals. So I didn't even have a season.
Wow.
And I came back from this hip fracture thing, and somebody told me to get on an erg and rip off a 2K, and I think I pulled a 620.
What?
And I'd never done one before, and I was going to bar back at my uncle's restaurant, Hopes Lake Shore, Athol Springs, New York. I was going to bar back all summer, and that was great. My whole family worked there. It's a great seafood restaurant on the shores of Lake Erie. My brother came down and got me from work one night and said, "Listen, Dad told me to drive down here, and you got to come home with me. You got to get on a plane to Long Beach tomorrow morning." So the word had gotten out about the 620, and at the time, this guy, Mike Vescovi, was coaching Long Beach State and he was running the camp out of Long Beach. And I had never been to California before. I don't think I'd been on a plane maybe once or twice before. And sounded good to me. The word had gotten out about the 620, and the guy wanted to give me a chance. And I was so green, and that's probably what saved me.
Wait a minute. So I'm sorry. You gotta. I know you want to talk broad strokes here, but this is crazy. You're telling me that you jumped on an erg, you pull a 620, and because of how small rowing is, your brother drives up, says you got to get on a plane, and you're on a plane in like a couple days and rowing with
the next morning. So.
How is that even real? How does that happen?
I think the guy behind the Whisper campaign with the 620 was this guy, Jim Neal. And Jim Neal was a famous Canisius High School Olympian. He went to Barcelona in 1992 in the Cox 4. I think they got 4th.
Wow.
Jim's going to kill me. If you won a bronze medal in that, I apologize, Jim. But Jim was a best friend of my older brothers. I'm the youngest of 7. And Jim was one of and so I think my brothers got talking, and Jim said, 620, like, somebody needs to know about this. I know that wouldn't even hold a candle to any of these kids these days, but
well, back then, I mean, that's a different story. You're talking early.
Jim made a call. I got on a plane. Quick story. We all know Matt Guerreri.
Yeah.
Okay. So Holy Spirit guy, and Matt Guerreri, well, I won't put the cart before the horse. Matt Guerreri, very first guy I saw Long Beach at the naval base where we were in our dorms. Very first guy I saw was Matt Guerreri, who at the time was 18 years old. He had a full bushy beard. I don't think I knew anybody who could grow hair on their face at the time. And I said, well, hi, how you doing? My name's Marty Crotty, and you must be Mike Vescovi. And he's like, no, I'm not the coach. My name's Matt Guerreri.
That is awesome.
And let me tell you, I didn't know anything about what had occurred the year before. They had just won the gold medal in Montreal. Josh Crosby, Mike Callahan, Matt Guerreri, Dave Brown, all the legends of junior rowing. And the very first guy I saw was Matt Guerreri. And once I found out that I was actually going to be competing against this guy, thank God he was in port. Once I found out I was going to be competing against this guy, I went to the nearest payphone and I called my dad. I'm like, I think I need to come home.
So what did you? You made the boat. Where did you sit in that boat?
I sat bow.
Your bow seat.
Bow seat, best seat in the boat.
There's no question about it. So was that your senior year of high school?
That was my junior year.
Your junior year. So you're one of the younger guys in that boat, then, if that's right.
Yeah, it was Bob Cummins, Aaron Frank, Dan Perkins, Dave Ryan, Porter Collins.
Porter Collins was in that boat.
Yeah.
Whew.
And,
what's fascinating about this is this was, I don't even know, nearly 30 years ago, and you can remember it like it was yesterday. I mean, you remember that your lineup. I'm sure you remember the lineup. I'm sure you remember the whole race, don't you?
You always remember your first time. There's a lot of boats I was in that I couldn't tell you who stroked it, who coxed it, coached it. But that's obviously that's the first big time rowing that I was involved in, and I'll never forget the coach. I'll never forget what got me there, and little details like that.
That is that's something special. Now, did you carry? I'm just trying to put myself in that position. If I'm racing the the junior world championships, I'm making rowing my focus, right? Did you go to college and row in college at that point?
Yeah. So I quickly learned all about the fact that this could really take me places. And because of Jim Neal, Jim was really good friends with Mike Tatey at the time. And Mike, so in the fall of that year, Jim calls me the day after Thanksgiving. And so this is 8 a.m. the day after Thanksgiving. And says, Marty, you need to grab your brother. You need to get downtown right now. And we're going to have breakfast with this guy, Mike Tatey. And I said, who the hell's Mike Tatey? I really, even after even after going to the Junior World Championships, I still had no idea. And so me and my brother walk into this downtown Buffalo diner. And there's Jim Neal and Mike Tatey. And Mike Tatey at the time had this huge, like, Raleigh Fingers mustache. And,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Is this guy Freddie Mercury or Mike Tatey? So, we sat down, and that was how I was introduced to Princeton. And it was pretty much just all about getting in at that point. And I probably didn't do my part in terms of trying to get in. Every time I took the SATs, I got worse. Every time I took the ACT, it was like way worse than the SAT. And
Wow.
somehow I got in, and I didn't expect it. The Naval Academy was my plan B. And I was all kind of signed, seared, and delivered at the Naval Academy. And I remember getting into Princeton, and I still had sort of committed to Navy, and Dan Lyons and Chris Clark at the time was the assistant coach at Navy. And I felt really bad about pulling out, but, you got to make hard decisions sometimes. So Princeton it was.
And this was 94, 97, or 95, 98 at Princeton?
This is the spring of 94. And
so, okay.
to all the youngsters out there, you used to be able to decide where you want to go to college like April 29th. The May 1st deadline, and take it right up to the last day. And I certainly didn't intend to string anybody along, but I did not expect to get into Princeton. When I did, it sort of changed everything. But yeah.
Wow. Now, in 94 and 97 at Princeton, what kind of success did your boats experience in that era, that time frame?
It was a good time to be at Princeton. It was a good thing to be a part of. I wrote a lot of coattails. Mike Tatey was my freshman coach. Curtis Jordan was the varsity coach. Chris Aarons. Chris sat behind me for a while.
Wow.
But after freshman year, I started having to ride his coattails. And
well, that was the start of his.
It was a Canadian.
Run,
it was a
right?
Canadian. And that's as international as you got back in that day.
Wow.
There really weren't any Europeans or anybody from down under at the time. International was like somebody from Toronto. And we had a few of those guys, and they looked like they just walked out of the woods, and their knuckles were dragging on the ground. Seth Brennan, Matt Adams, just the type of old man farmer strength that you just can't coach. They're just beasts. And whenever we needed to dig down and get a few seats, it was easy, I guess.
How many sprint or IRA medals were won in that era with you guys at Princeton?
We won the freshman 8. I won as a sophomore, and then I won again as a senior.
So this is IRA or sprints or both?
IRAs was the 3 I mentioned, and then I only won sprints. We only won sprints in 97.
Oh, wow.
What's ironic about that is, and this is not saying anything to the guys that I rode with in 96 and 98, but I think 97 was probably the fastest boat that we put together. And we crushed sprints, and we just got it all wrong for IRA. I don't know what happened, but unfortunately we weren't able to do the 4 in a row because we totally swung and missed in 97 at IRAs.
When I should know this. When did Dan Garbett row at Princeton? He was in the 90s, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think Dan, he was a freshman when I was a senior. Maybe I was I think we had 1 year of overlap. He was 01, I was 98. So, yeah, I think we had 1 year of overlap.
Yeah, he had a smoking fast team in like 99, I think, right? Wasn't Princeton real quick in 99 or 98?
I want to say they were really fast in 01.
01, they were really fast. Okay.
Paul Tatey, Tom Hirschmiller, they had rowed in the Olympic Games. They had taken the year off of school.
Right.
Those guys all came back, and then they had the Flick brothers who were 6'7" each. One is older than the other, but they might have had just one Flick in there. No, they just had one Flick in there. But anyway, the first guys I know that pulled in the 540s in college.
Yeah,
And
I
so
mean,
they had a huge crew, and so they had a lot of success in '01. But IRAs that year, something happened. They just got on the back foot in qualification, or something happened. They ended up out in lane 6, which is about 6 inches deep, back on the old Cooper River course, before they dredged it. And the deck was stacked against them. Cal was amazing at the time. Cal beat him by about a half a boat at IRAs.
So you graduate 97, you're in 98. I mean, what do you do with your career at that point in the late 90s? Where do you go?
Late 90s, it was really super convenient. I had already been on a couple of U23 teams, and Mike had gone from being my freshman coach the very next year, just taking over the national team.
Yeah.
And, they won the 8 in 97 and 98. It was very much something you wanted to be a part of, and you wanted to work your ass off to try to just find a way into the bow seat of that grade 8. So my intention was to keep on training and just stay in Princeton. I didn't even have to move out of my dorm. I think we found a way to keep our dorm or something over the summer. But after I graduated, Oxford University, it was an opportunity, and I thought it would be great to go away for a year and come back and maybe try to make the Olympics after I got back. Maybe some regrets there in terms of trying to make the team, but no regrets on Oxford. Amazing regimen, amazing environment. The academics over there gave me another chance to be like a scholar athlete. It was a paper degree, but I took it as seriously as I could take it. Again, if I could go do it again, I would get myself in a real course or do a 2-year course or a 4-year course.
Did you race in the boat race over there?
I did, 99.
And how did you do?
Down.
Oh, what was that? So, I mean, as an American, how many Americans were in that competition at that time?
Geez. So one other American in my boat was Toby Ayer. So, you know Toby?
I do not, no.
He was helping out with Harvard. He was an MIT grad. Huge ox of a guy. Huge, 6'6", just really broad-shouldered. And then he just killed it. So he was this huge guy. You'd be totally scared of this guy, but he had this little C. Everett Koop beard with no mustache. He just had the beard. And I don't know what it is with these CDC guys or these Surgeon General guys, because the head of the CDC that I see on TV, he's got the same beard. It's like a requirement job or something. But anyway, Toby Ayer was in the boat, and my roommate was Morgan Crooks, but he was Canadian. And then there was a Swede, there was a German, and then 3 or 4 Brits.
Now is it just you said 1 year at Oxford? Is that right?
Yeah, just 1 year. They had a course they used to call the Diploma in Social Studies. And, it's what you did if you played cricket or played rugby or rowed. And, I mean, basically, that's what I thought. If I had gone back, it's really the admissions to Oxford these days are not easy.
Yeah.
So I'm not taking anything away from the guys who are getting in there at this very moment. I think I had the academic credentials from Princeton to be able to get into a better course looking back, but I just never knew what was available. I didn't really delve into it. I was just happy I got a call one day and they said, if you want to come to Oxford and study and do this course and row in the boat race, the opportunity's there. This is the person you have to contact. And
what was just for clarification's sake, what was your 2K score at that point in your career? I mean, what kind of scores were you dropping at that point?
556.
Wow.
Took me a while. I guess I made steady progress in that.
That's still pretty damn fast. I mean, even in today's standards, that's pretty quick 2K there.
Well, you had to, because all the guys I've mentioned so far in this podcast, they were all doing that too. And honestly, between Matt Adams and, guys in the JV were breaking 6 minutes. And they went undefeated, and they won the sprints, and they won the IRA. You could have a day where the workout was 3x2K or 3x4K or something, and if you were just a little off, you would be 9th or 10th on starboard side. And so, like, you had to go down to the boathouse with a chip on your shoulder, and you had to be hungry every day, or you were just going to get passed. And you didn't know, like, okay, one day, that's fine. If you win the national championship when you're a sophomore, like, maybe you could have a day off.
Yeah.
The coach is going to, like, just kick you down into the 3-day. But if you had a week or two or a month where you were just in a rut like that, you were out. And so you had to really pay attention.
So I want to bring up, this is an interesting topic. So when you were there, I think it's called the Armory, right? Like the Princeton boathouse. You had the best athletes in the world training there, right? For the Olympic team and the national team. And at the same time, you had IRA sprint winners, medalists. Like, beyond saying that you had a chip on your shoulder, like, how much work was being done at Princeton? It had to be a crazy environment to be around. You're talking about the best athletes in the world training there, right?
You know, when I stop and think about it for 5 seconds, and when you frame it like that, yes. I mean, how can you the three-time defending world championship 8?
Yeah, 97.
All those guys were, and it's all those guys. This is really important. All those guys were so accessible, and they were. 90% of those guys. I'm sure there's a guy here or there that I just haven't kept in touch with, but I consider all those guys my friends, and they were national teamers. And then over the summer, I got to row with most of them. And if Mike Tatey ever comes across this podcast, what I really appreciate is the opportunity to row in that boat until like 3 weeks before Worlds every year, when he just made his boat and then sent the boat to Worlds.
I look at, so
I get a chance to race in that boat a few times.
A guy like me, I'm 34. I've watched a fine balance. I don't even know how many times, 100 times at this point. And guys of my generation, my age, we really look up to your group of people. The 4 or 5 years at Princeton, we look up to you guys because you helped define United States rowing. Like, your small part, you're looking at Bo Hoopman, not Bo Hoopman, sorry. You're Chris Aarons and Volpe and this whole group. But again, I wanted to just try to dive in a little bit more into that experience of having that much power and strength and ego and skill in the boathouse for 4 years. I mean, what else can you do or describe about that environment when you were there? It's an era that 30-year-old men of rowing in the United States deemed the best 4 years of U.S. rowing ever. I mean, it was a special moment.
It's amazing that when you put it like that, it's amazing that I even was a part of it in a very, very, very small way. I'm just going to, when I first became a coach at Princeton, I got a really nice letter. Didn't have to do it, but I got a really nice letter from Joe Murtaugh, who was a longtime lightweight coach before Greg was the lightweight coach, before I was the lightweight coach. Excuse me. And Joe said, listen, congratulations on the job, and I'm just going to give you one little bit of advice. You can crumple this up and throw it in a bin if you want, but I just want you to hear it from me. The way to get on at the Shea Rowing Center is to share more than you take, to give more than you take. And so I'm just kind of putting that stake in the ground, and then I'm going to back up to your question. Guys like Phil Henry, like role players. Now, Phil won in 97. He was in the 8 that won in 97. But he didn't – then he wasn't in the 98 8 or the 99 8. But role players like Phil Henry, Bob Kaler, Jeff Klepacki, Mike Callahan, and all the guys we've already mentioned, those guys gave so much. They shared, and they didn't close themselves up. We were in selection. It was the Olympics.
Yeah.
And because they had established so much, they had already won for the last 3 years. Everybody was scratching and clawing and fighting each other like mad to get in that boat, and maybe the straight four if you're lucky. And despite all that, guys were still open. They were open books, and they shared. And, like, if you're having a bad day, they would, you had to go back to the house or whoever you were living with at the time or whoever was hosting you. And they still they would sit down, they would talk to you. They would talk about maybe what went wrong that day or how we could do better the next day. And, like, I was so young and stupid that I needed that. And then getting back to Princeton, like, Princeton was the same way. And hopefully, I don't know, hopefully people would say the same thing about me. But I always thought there were people around me that just gave me so much, and they just shared. They never got so competitive that somebody was too good for you or too good to just chat with you for 5 minutes and try to make you better. That was the absolute key.
Yeah, I think there's not a lot of people that ever get that experience, right, in life. That's a really big life experience. I think that has probably helped shape you in your coaching. And it leads me to what I consider a pretty good question. You're a Princeton alum. You're coaching Princeton. How have you carried on that tradition and that passion for Princeton rowing in the last 10 years of your career? Because, like, it's obvious how much love and affection you have for Princeton. Like, is it challenging for you to keep that passion going? Is it? I guess, do you share that with your athletes, your history and your story with your athletes? Like, walk me through that a little bit.
I'm old enough now, and there's not a lot of video, and there's not a lot of what I just told you for the last 20 minutes. There's not a lot that's documented unless you really – I think Road 2K started in 1998, so they only got like a quarter of that.
Wow.
But my athletes now, they were born after I stopped rowing. Yeah. At a very high level. So my biography, my career in rowing doesn't mean squat. And I don't try. I mean, I might refer to some things and I might tell some stories, but, like, I'm not the subject of those stories. It's just like some hypothetical person, and maybe someday I'll tell them that was about me. But yeah, I don't try to make anything about my career and what it means to their career. I just try to teach them how I was taught. And I mean, how can you go wrong when you were taught by, again, Mark Kostrevsky, Jack Dorn, Mike Tatey, Curtis Jordan, Chris Clark, Gavin White, numerous others.
Well, you brought up a topic that I think is, for us at Rower's Choice and everything that we're doing, the history of rowing. It's interesting you said that your history doesn't mean squat to them. And why do you think that is? Is it just because you're a dinosaur to them with air quotes, or is it because they just don't care about it?
So long ago that it can't possibly be applicable to today, Like, things are different today. School's harder today, I mean, Princeton's harder, Oxford's harder. Like, everything's always harder. I don't know. So maybe there's a little bit of that. But
so how do you think this is, you don't have to answer this question, but Tatey has done a really good job keeping himself relevant and a great coach through all this time. I mean, some would argue his pinnacle was in the 04 boat, but yet he's now running the program still. How do you think, knowing Tatey, Tatey better than I do, how do you think he's done? What do you think he's done to keep himself with these youngsters and relevant in a time like today?
Well, he's a really, obviously, as everybody, he's a very charismatic guy. So you're naturally just kind of drawn to him, and then once you're drawn to him, it's easy to believe in his teachings. It's easy to believe in his way, and there's a magnetism to it. I know Mike has most likely adapted to a lot of different things that have occurred over the last 30 years. But overall, and I think about this with the other greats, they really stick to their guns.
Mm.
And, Mike's the tip of the pyramid in terms of coaching a certain way. I do tell this to my guys. When we're out there doing 6 to 12 miles of legs only, one in pause body over, or outside arm only, pause body over, and they're sitting there going, really? Legs only still again? Like another lap of legs only? I tell them the story every time of the, 2 weeks before the Athens 8 went to the Olympics, they did like 6 or 8 miles of legs only in that practice.
Wow.
Maybe they were just like sharpening up, or maybe they had run out of stuff to do, but Mike sticks to his guns. And if you go out with Mike any day, he's making the guys push their legs down, and he's hanging off the outside arm. And he's just doing the same stuff he's always done. And he's had success in a lot of places doing it.
I can't stop taking
very
notes.
Simple. Very simple.
No, that is very simple. Now, walk me through when you got the job at Princeton, when you became the head coach of Princeton. When did that happen? Where were you in your life at that point?
Before I was head coach, I actually was Curtis's assistant. And so in 2005, I was going in my third year as the director of the PNRA, which was the PIRA at the time, Princeton International Regatta Association, which basically runs the Mercer Lake facility.
Yep.
The Casperson Rowing Center. And I had the keys to the Casperson Center, and I put in a bid for the U19 World Championship team. So I think it was 05, or I think it was the summer of 05. The guys in that 8 will kill me, but Craig Hoffman gave me the keys to the U19 junior team. So I laughed because he must have been crazy to do it. But I had a whole bid package, and we are going to run the training out of Casperson Center, and we were going to house the guys at Petty, and we raised a whole bunch of money. And it's not like it is now where you got to pay like all this money to be a part of it. I detest that, by the way, for anybody listening out there. But we were able to do it so that anybody could come, pay for your week of the selection camp. If you make the team, you don't have to pay anything. We went over to Germany. We won the gold medal.
Wow.
Just at that time, Curtis was looking for an assistant coach. And I loved being the director of the PNRA. I mean, that place is a gold mine. It's a great event center. It's the national team trains out of there from time to time, whether it's the men or the women, and depending on who the coach is. I think Mercer Park in central New Jersey is just an amazing place. Anyway, it was a chance to come back to Princeton and work under Curtis, and I couldn't pass it up. So that's where I was. And then for 4 years I did that. And then Curtis in 2009 just decided to turn over a new page in his book. And he said he just wanted to get into something different. But like 6 months later, he was going down to Australia to be the head of New South Wales rowing. And then he ended up being like on the Olympic staff down there. So he might have known that was going on. He wanted to pursue that. So he left the top of the heap. Greg moved up, and then I moved up under Greg. So
you've been
That's
there
how that went down.
11. I mean, it's like 11 years, 12 years.
That was 05 to 09. And so in the fall of 09, I became the head coach of lightweight rowing. So yeah, I think this was my 11th year, something like that.
Now, we're gonna close with this. This is gonna be our last closing topic here, and it's a heavy one. So there's gonna be some time dedicated to it. The IOC is against lightweight rowing, and there's chatter constantly about lightweight rowing. You are running the lightweight program of Princeton, right? A program that has won a lot of medals at the highest levels. Given what's happening, where do you see lightweight rowing going in the sport of rowing in the United States in the next, say, 3 to 5 years?
I think if you look at it just from a competitive standpoint, that's the number one thing we have going, is that lightweight rowing is an opportunity for a larger segment of the rowing population to be competitive. And there's no doubt that the lightweight rowing races, whether it's, the varsity 8 at the Eastern Sprints or IRA, all the way down to like the freshman lightweight 4 at the Dad Vales. Like, lightweight rowing races are some of the most competitive rowing races at the regatta. And so in terms of excitement, the excitement value of it, or just the excitement value for the rowers involved, I think we're in a good spot.
Okay.
If anything, it's getting more competitive. This year would have been a great spring for us, and there's a lot of coaches saying that. It would have been a great spring for us. We were going really well, but I've never been more, just looking at the landmines on my schedule. I've never had so many back-to-back hard races that were already on my schedule. To have Penn, Cornell, Columbia, and Harvard, and Yale, and everybody was going to be right there this year. Navy was coming off a medal at the sprints last year. Like, everybody kind of really had their act together. And so in my 10 years, we've gone through, Princeton's gone through some, not dark days, but some cloudier days where, I never went into any Saturday or championship without thinking I could win, but looking back, we probably had no chance of winning. I think this year, 4 or 5 crews on the right day had a chance to win. And so, like, again, competitively, you can't dispute that. And I think any other one of my colleagues would agree that this year was going to be just an amazing year in our league. On an international level, look, the Olympic Games it's going to have its limitations. They want to sell deodorant, they want to sell shampoo, they want to sell suntan oil. So look, beach volleyball, skateboarding, BMX, maybe they got to find a place for those sports and move rowing aside a little bit. But I think as long as rowing keeps a spot in the Olympics, I think lightweight rowing will always have a place domestically. We have a huge alumni bases out there. I know my administration at Princeton is 100% in support of us in our chance to win an Ivy League championship every year. So, look, as coaches, we just have to keep on keeping on and teach what was taught to us and create a competitive environment. It makes the kids stronger. It makes them smarter. It makes their experience at Princeton better. And that's hopefully what'll help the sport along.
Let me challenge you. Let me challenge you. So, what do you say to the coach or the individual who says, well, the boys or girls, men and women that try to become lightweights are hurting their bodies for the future? So, like, a natural weight of a 175 guy who's sucking weight to get to 150, there's a lot of health problems with that. At Princeton, I'm sure you follow rules and regulations. So what do you tell the people that say health reasons you shouldn't have it?
I agree.
You agree that you should.
I'll elaborate on that a little bit. I was trying to make a point there. I agree. I don't think I run away from a kid who comes in, sits on your couch. He's 168 pounds as a 17-year-old. He's making a visit to Princeton. And he asked me the types of things he should be doing so that he can stay lightweight.
Oh, yeah.
I turned right to mom and dad, and I looked the kid in the eye, and I said, don't be doing anything to make sure you stay lightweight. And when a lot of people are asking me, I guess you got me on the spot, but and if this gets me in trouble, fine. What U.S. Rowing did to lower the high school weight, and they still have the within 2 hours of your race or within an hour of your race. I think all those things are good, and if they were to eliminate lightweight rowing, it might not be the worst thing, and it might not be the worst thing for college rowing, because the age group the age group, high school rowing, you're not defined as an adult yet. And so technically, you can't make decisions for yourself yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you get to college, you get away from home, you can make those decisions. And all the lightweight programs that I know have a heavyweight bay right next door. So if you want to decide to get into the spring and watch your weight and weigh in every Friday at 5 o'clock, you can make that decision as an adult. And if it's too much for you, there's a heavyweight rowing team right next door. And that's the way it's always been at Princeton. When it comes to getting back to high school, you shouldn't be 14 years old, or you shouldn't be 16 years old trying to go from 160 to 149 and then rowing an hour later. Like, it's just not right. And that doesn't mean that you can't be a competitive lightweight rower in college just because you couldn't row lightweight in high school. So, maybe I'm trying to bifurcate it's like on one hand, I say that in college, you're old enough to make the decisions and I don't see the health risk. And we go through all these protocols to make it as safe as you possibly can, including weighing in the night before at 5 p.m. Literally have 17 or 18 hours before your race. So it's very safe. Again, you're dealing with adults versus kids in high school. So I think there are differences between high school and college.
Well, you did a really good job explaining your position, but what I like hearing is that as the coach, the person that runs the program and that oversees these athletes, and look, you and I both know a 20-year-old is still not an adult. A 21-year-old is still not an adult. They need direction from coaches, from parents, from family. Keeping a good head on your shoulders and saying, if you're 168 pounds and you're asking me the wrong questions if I want to become a lightweight, I like that. You have an open door policy on the heavyweight side, right? So you're keeping protocol, you're keeping things the way they should be. And if you're naturally of weight, then lightweight rowing should exist. But if you're on that border and you need to make a decision, then it's clear that you as a leader of that program or a leader of Princeton University, you say, look, you're not going to make it at lightweight. Here's a great program that you can still row, still be competitive. Now you're just going to make a different decision. I love that. And I think we're huge proponents of it. We think lightweight rowing should continue and blossom and grow with the right protocol. And I think you stated your position very clearly. And I like that. So you look, I got 3 pages of notes here and I can keep going on this. Walk me through your next, say, 5-10 years. I mean, are you a Princeton for lifer guy, or are you looking to grow your career even more in different areas of rowing, or do you just really like where you are right now? Like, where do you see yourself, Marty, in a couple of years?
Coaching is great. Princeton's a great place to be, no doubt about it. It provides a tremendous environment for my family. I have 3 kids, and they're getting older, so I have twin 13-year-olds and an 8-year-old. So far, so good with the twins. The only place they want to go to college is Princeton. I think they only think there's 2 or 3 universities on the planet. My wife went to Princeton, so Princeton is in us, and it's given us all the opportunities we've ever had. So I would love to be here for the rest of my career. Coaching is cyclical, and we race the same schedule, we go to the same championships, you see the same faces, you race against the same guys every year. But hey, at least 30% of your team changes every year, so it's interesting enough for me to get 10 or 15 new bodies every year and to try to bring them along and try to improve on some of the mistakes I make. And I've gone through ebbs and flows, and early in my coaching career was the high school level and even at the junior world championship level, super successful. Early in my head coach career, I was more successful than I was in 13, 14, 15 were tough years. 2016, tough years. And I'm kind of back on the upswing. So, like, it ebbs and flows enough to keep it more than interesting myself. And there's nothing I like better than grabbing my megaphone and going out on the launch at 4 o'clock every day. I mean, there's nothing that beats that.
It's we've interviewed a lot of coaches, and it's the same thing. It's the same comment. They just love getting up every day at the same time, working their butts off in the launch, cold, hot, doesn't matter. The passion for rowing is there, and the passion for Princeton's there. Marty, I love your story, man. I'm a guy that drops a 620 just out of the blue, Buffalo, New York, a place that no one would ever think rowing really existed. You've been in the presence of some of the best rowers and coaches this sport has seen ever in the United States specifically. And you're at your first probably love, Princeton, coaching a great program. Look, man, I love this story, and I really hope that the kids that you coach appreciate that era that you were at. We talked about Princeton 96 to 2000. 2001. Those are pinnacle years for rowing. I really hope they appreciate it. Is there any last remarks that you want to say before we end this interview here?
Just the way you asked the questions along the way, it got me talking about certain eras or parts too. I wouldn't be a coach. You might find this interesting just because I've listened to a couple of your previous episodes. I wouldn't be a coach. So in 1999, I went to Oxford. 2000, didn't make the Olympic team. July of 2000, I'm like, what do I do now? My girlfriend at the time says, I'm going to University of Chicago Law School. Want to come out, hang out with me, maybe get a job out there? I said, I've heard Chicago is a big Buffalo. I'm in. So we packed up the U-Haul. Wow. Drove from Fort Lauderdale, Florida to Chicago, where my wife checked into her first year at law school. We're Catholic Christians, so can't live together. And that was cool. And we really didn't share a bed until we were married. But
yeah, secret's safe with me, man. Okay. Got it.
Just in case your dad's watching. But so I had a place up in Lincoln Park, and she had a place down in Hyde Park, down where the law school is. So in Chicago, or if you're from Buffalo, you gotta have your neighborhood bar. You gotta have a place. If I'm gonna get a job, if I'm gonna live in Lincoln Park, I gotta have a bar that I go to on my way home from work. You gotta have your place. So the very first bar I walked into, on no recommendation, just by chance, I walk into this place called Will's Northwood Lounge. And I shit you not, there's this little small guy, this little small runty guy behind the bar, and he's counting some 20s in the cash register. I'm like, I know that guy. And he's got a Wisconsin hat on. And he turns around, and who is it? It's Matt Baldino.
Oh, man.
Holy crap. The last time I had seen Matt Baldino was at the 1997 IRAs, but Matt Baldino was the coxswain of the Cox 4 in that 1993 junior team. So Matt and I go way back.
Wow.
And I walk into Chicago, and I put a 20 on the bar, and I don't think that $20 bill was cashed for the next 3 years. I spent 3 years in Chicago, and Matt Baldino, Bruce Smith, Tim Kelly, Mike Kelly, those guys recruited me to help out with the Loyola Academy rowing team in 2000. Raul Rodriguez was a coach then. So I started helping out with the program, and I got a feel for how impactful you can be. Again, just sharing the experience. And at the time, you asked me with the Princeton kids, do I share my experiences with them? Not directly. But at the time, I had just gotten out of a national team boat a year ago. Mm-hmm. And I didn't make the Olympics, and there was a lot of failure in my mind there. But sharing my experiences with those guys and just understanding how impactful I could be in a situation of whether it's a volunteer coach or an actual everyday coach. I got a feel for coaching. I really liked it. And I didn't turn back after that. And I had a day job. Then Bruce left. Bruce headed out east again. And I became the head coach of Loyola Academy just for 1 year.
Wow.
But if I didn't do that, I would have never been a coach as a career. So who knows if Matt Baldino is not tending bar at Will's Northwood Lounge in August of 2000. Who knows if I'm a coach? I have no idea.
That's amazing.
I know you like stories like that, so there you go.
I love that story. I mean, we work with Matt a lot, and yeah, I mean, I have those same stories. I mean, we all do, and that's beautiful. But what's amazing is, again, the 1 degree of separation, how lucky and fortunate you are to be connected to all these people in your life. I mean, they help shape your life. They help shape the direction that you've taken your family. And it's a beautiful story. And I really hope that people that watching or listening get a same sense, that realize, like, you know what, maybe I am going to walk into a bar in Chicago and meet the next person that's going to give me the direction to go and take my career in another way. Or maybe they'll appreciate more the athletes and the coaches that are around right now because they help shape who they become 20 or 30 years from now. I think it's a beautiful story, man. I love it. So,
I just think if you're around good people and you feel like they're good people and you admire them, whatever they do or whatever wisdom they can impart on you, just trust it. And then the same thing goes for if you find yourself encountering like a real dick, probably a dick. And like,
we are going to end
run away from that person.
That is a perfect ending. So we'll end with this. So I'm Alex Del Sordo, and this is Marty Crotty, the head coach of lightweight Princeton rowing. I hope you had a chance to listen and feel for what this guy had to say, and I think it'll impact you in the future as well. Thanks for watching.
My name is Alex Del Sordo, and I'm with my father, Sam Del Sordo, here at Finish Line Shelter Care.
And 20 and race face.
This is the Rower's Choice Podcast.